It's the Latino Newsletter Podcast, a show about us all the time. I'm your host, Julio Ricardo Varela. This is episode 3 of our first season. As you know, we will be diving into the 2024 election cycle through a clear Latino lens. The DNC is coming up, in a couple of days, and we'll actually have people from the Latino Newsletter correspondents there, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to pivot today because, as you know, this is a topic that's been near and dear to me for years, and that is Latino and Latina representation in Hollywood. And before we start episode 3 and pivot to entertainment and representation, we need to thank the Latino Community Foundation for their generous support in making this podcast season happen. So learn more about the Latino Community Foundation at latinocf.org. Okay, so you might remember, or not, that I used to host Latino Rebels Radio from 2013 to 2023. It started on Blog Talk Radio, and it was live. Okay, people would call in, and we'd have conversations Sunday nights late. We would talk about a lot of things, and one of them was about representation. And then eventually Latino Rebels Radio and Latino Rebels moved to Futuro Media, and the podcast was nominated for several podcast awards. We made several lists for top Latino podcasts. And as you know, like I said, if you're a fan of the work that I do, I hope you are, or maybe you're not. Maybe you just hate the work that I do and just hate listen, which is totally cool. Almost every year, I would spend time checking in on the state of Latinos and Latinas in Hollywood. And one expert who would make appearances on the show and also used to write incredible entertainment pieces for Latino Rebels is this week's guest on the Latino Newsletter Podcast. So let me read her official bio, because that's what I'm doing these days on the show. Working at the intersection of race, gender, and pop culture, Cristina Escobar is the co-founder and EIC, that's editor-in-chief, okay, of Latina Media Co., which is a great site, Latina Media Co. Go find it if you really want to get amazing entertainment content about our community. Cristina is a rehabilitated English major. She's a TEDx speaker. She's a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic. She's a member of the Critics' Choice Association and just recently became a board member of the Latino Entertainment Journalists Association. And her writing can be found in Glamour, Roger Ebert, Latino Rebels, Remezcla, Shondaland, and Lost Grocery List. And finally, and most importantly, her abuelita made the best tamales this world has ever seen. You can follow Cristina on Twitter and Instagram at Sesco Barandrade. That's Sesco Barandrade. Cristina, hey, welcome to the Latino Newsletter Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Question number 1. This is a serious question. Why are your abuelita's tamales the best in the world?
A couple of reasons. Good question. One is that we beat the masa until it rises in water. So it's super fluffy and soft and not like that kind of thick, dry stuff that you sometimes get in other tamales. Okay. And then the other reason, well, there's 2, we make all of our sauces from scratch, but I would say with the red, we make oh my God, my cooking words here. So,
this is right. I totally threw you off. I love it. This is awesome.
We make a roux, which is a French term, but with lard. So there's lard and flour involved, and you heat it and stir it until it thickens. And then we add the red chili in that we've, of course, roasted and pureed and sieved and all of that stuff together. So it's a combination of traditional and also just a teeny bit of borrowed technique that I think makes for just the perfect little thing.
Okay. I didn't think that the Latino Newsletter podcast would start turning into food conversations, but it's back to back because we had Paolo Cremides last week talking about Peruvian fried rice, and now you're talking about your abuelita's tamales, and I'm all in because I'm cooking a lot these days, Cristina. So that's what I do now. in my independent journalism life. I've
Nice.
But listen, it's 2024. Let's do the big picture question. What is the state of Latino and Latina representation in Hollywood in 2024 right now?
Yeah. So it's an interesting moment because we had previously had all of this growth, right? With streaming channels doubling the number of productions. We were getting just like more and more TV and more movies. And now it's contracting. So we're getting less. This is after the strikes. And so the numbers aren't out yet, but there's a real question about what that's going to look like. As the number of productions grew, the number of Latino, Latinx, Latina productions grew, but not the percentage. We kind of stayed the same. So I'm really curious as the numbers start to come out again, is our percentage going to stay the same? I hope so. If not, grow a little bit. So we're kind of in an inflection point. We don't really know. I will say, I think that there has been some growth, or it feels anecdotally, not statistically, anecdotally, that we're seeing more of our talent in like ensemble shows. We're starting to be kind of like one of everybody, right? In that mix, and like not enough still of shows written, created, directed, produced by us getting out into the mainstream, but we are starting to be at least part of the plurality that Hollywood acknowledges that exists.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a victory. Are there any recent examples of the Latinos in ensembles that just jump out at you? Because, you're like my entertainment friend.
Yeah. I mean, so we've kind of been a little bit everywhere, which is also, right, a really big win.
It's a win. Like, let's acknowledge that you said big win.
Apple TV has like Bad Monkey out today starring Vince Vaughn, and he's opposite Latina. You look at all the procedurals that are out now. We're one of all of them, if not starting to be some of the leads. I love Will Trent on ABC. That's like a standard old school but fun network show. We're on Lone Star 911. Like kind of the list goes on and on and on. And we're starting to be in those sort of like one of everyone, new shows, continuing shows that are getting renewed. Remember, renewed? Yeah, that can happen to us. It's nice.
What is procedurals? Sorry, I'm like this is all new world to me. What does that mean?
A procedural is a mystery of a week show. So like a Law and Order or CSI, but also there's a ton of them. Poker Face, like. It's a classic TV genre.
Julio, got it. All right. Well, I learned something new on the Latino Newsletter podcast. All right. So the Emmys are coming up in the middle of September. So break down. You all did at Latino Media Co. some really good rundowns of the Latina and Latino winners in the nominations. So break it down. Give us the specific. Who do you expect to win? Who are the winners, right? And maybe, we can talk about who didn't get nominated, but let's celebrate some of the wins first. Go for it.
First. Okay, so Only Murders in the Building, one of my favorite shows, stars three people, count them three, two old white guys who are talents and legends, Steve Martin and Martin Short. And then Selena Gomez. And while they've all been nominated as producers, the old guys have been getting nominations as actors. And this is the first Emmys where Selena is also nominated. Holler. That's exciting. And again.
Okay. She was great.
She's really good. She
and Only
them
Murders.
Perfectly. Yes. Only Murders.
So she got nominated with the Marty, as if I know him. Did Martin Short and Stephen Martin, they got nominated too, I would think. Right?
Yeah, but they've always gotten nominated.
They always get. So that's a good sign. That's a win. All right, give me another win.
Okay, so for The Bear, which is like the Hollywood darling, we have a Latina. That's another ensemble show where it's like, oh, we have one. We got one in there. And she is amazing. Liza Colon Zayas. I love her. Anytime I get a chance to see her, I'm like, yes. And she's so good. And this is the second season of The Bear.
It's not even the third, because I think she does even better work in the third. So the fact that she got the second season nominated, because her episode in the third, maybe it's because I'm going through, career transitions and I'm kind of getting longer in the tooth, even though I'm Gen X. Well, Gen X is getting older. That one hits home.
Yeah.
So this is all season 2 of The Bear. So we know that The Bear is going to keep going. I mean, she's fantastic.
She is fantastic.
Yeah, give me another one that you love that you're like, oh, we're celebrating this. This is a win at Latina Media Co.
Yeah, I really want to celebrate Isa Lopez she is the showrunner behind the more new season of True Detective Night Country. This is the one with Jodie Foster and the Indigenous plot line. And I just feel like, True Detective has been an awards darling. It's an anthology show, which means that like every season is different. And to see a Latina take the helm and really just like run away with it in a really exciting way and make something new and powerful is pretty great. And then to also get recognized for that, right? All the things.
Yeah. The only thing I will say, True Detective, I mean, I might watch it again when it gets really hot, if it ever got hot again. Well, you're out, right? You're in New Mexico, or are you these days?
Yeah.
In New Mexico? Yeah.
New Mexico.
That's the kind of show to watch when it's like 110 degrees out because it's so cold. Because of the Alaska thing. Like, if you don't have air conditioning, you're like, oh, I'm cold. All right, we talked about the wins, but who else do you think should have been nominated who's Latina, Latino, or who got robbed, or, however you want. There's always someone like, the fix is in.
I think in terms of our community's nominations, we did pretty good.
All right. I think that's I acknowledge that. We're doing good. All right.
Yeah, we're doing good.
All right. But you're going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I want to say Reservation Dogs finally got nominated. The Indigenous show. It's based out of Oklahoma. I feel like it is one of the most innovative, best things that's been on TV in a long time. It is a hilarious show about grief and coming of age, which doesn't even make sense, but it works wonderfully on the screen. It got its first nomination this time, which is a shame because it's its last season. And while some of the cast did get nominated and the show got nominated, Devery Jacobs, who's amazing in it and has been writing in the show, she didn't get the nod. And I was like, I don't feel like that's right. So.
Okay. I'm just going to ask the question. I'm not going to make assumptions. As a curious journalist, that's what they call me, curious journalist. You did talk about wins, some losses. You're saying overall it's pretty decent. So are you optimistic about representation, or is this the same old, we just have, this yearly conversation and nothing really changes? Or are you seeing it? Are you witnessing it? I know you go out now, you're a TEDx speaker, you covered Sundance. And so how do you feel? Like, where are you with all this? Like, is it the same conversation you're having? Or do you feel like the conversation has advanced? And why or why not?
I think it's getting a little bit better. I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic. Otherwise, I would give up. So yes to optimism.
I know, it's kind of like life's wisdom. Like, like
you have to be.
Yeah, exactly. So I am optimistic with you in general with life, but in talking about representation, how optimistic are you?
So I'm concerned about the contracting of Hollywood and who is going to be on the chopping block. So I have some concerns, but I also feel really proud and excited of our community and the organizing that we have done around this issue. I think we're starting to get a better understanding of I think we've known for a long time why representation matters and why we want it. But we're starting to get a better understanding of like our community needs to be represented in all of its diversity, right? Like we need Afro-Latinos and queer and women and all the folks. And so that feels really good. And then there's also been work around building real power, whether it's getting people funded or getting our voices heard or organizing at festivals. I think we're starting to see, if not the actual change, the like foundation that I am optimistic is going to push for it to actually really happen and no longer be like a cool trend. We've got a Latino show, but like a sustainable movement of creatives who are building a robust and expansive definition of Latinidad on TV and movies.
Do you want to do you have any specific examples of, because those are really great observations and takes. But how do you see that specifically in what you've been covering in the last year?
Absolutely. So I recently went back and watched a 2019 film called The Infiltrators. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's a mix of documentary and traditional filmmaking, and it's about a true story of undocumented youth who
I love
infiltrated.
this movie, and I know Alex.
It's so good. It's so good. Who infiltrates an ICE facility and helps get people out. It's so good.
Right. It's these undocumented activists. They come in and they infiltrate. They get detained by Border Patrol to kind of
on purpose
to kind of raise attention and trying to be like, "Yo, we're trying to like shake the system."
Right.
Okay. It's
Absolutely.
a great movie. It's
and
one of my favorites.
It's so good.
This is why you and I are friends, because we have really good like film taste. All right, so
for sure. So continuing to that example, Cristina Escobar and Alex Rivera, who are the filmmakers behind The Infiltrators, have created a film lab out of Arizona State University, but in their Los Angeles, don't get lost here, in their Los Angeles satellite. And their concept, and I think this is so smart, is that recognizing we have the talent. Like, we have films that come out of Sundance that are these indie darlings that are amazing.
Yeah.
And then those filmmakers don't get the same track that like a white guy filmmaker would get. When a white person, a white man gets an amazing premiere at Sundance, they're directing the next Marvel movie.
Exactly. A white guy filmmaker. Yeah. I like it. It's like, I am white guy filmmaker. Let me just get to Sundance and I got my career made. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Chance after chance to fail. And it's like a whole different pipeline. And so what they're doing is, and I think they got like the MacArthur Genius Award. Like they're doing it. They're going to look at filmmakers who are coming out of Sundance, Latino, Latina, Latinx filmmakers, and invest in them so they can make a second or third movie and help fix that pipeline problem. And that is like where the money's at. Like, people are doing it. They're doing the money stuff, they're doing the organizing stuff, and they're investing in our talent. So when I see stuff like that with like big institutional backing, I'm excited.
That's a good point, and obviously representation will lead to more diverse, authentic storytelling across the spectrum. I think that's. I'm hopeful. Although I'm still pissed that they didn't renew This Fool. I love that movie. I love that one. I can't believe it's right. That's not happening, right?
Nope.
Right?
Yeah, 2 seasons on Hulu and done. And it sucks because that one got released during the strike, so they didn't get the second season. They didn't get to be able to do the full promotion. I feel like I got a short.
This is a story because I have one last question, but I got COVID when it released. When I came back from NAHJ, National Association of Hispanic Journalists, it was like in Las Vegas, and it premiered, and that was the best COVID cure for me. Like, it was funny. I felt like I knew everyone from East LA. I just felt so comfortable, and I still get upset. But listen, before we wrap this up, what about you, Cristina? You've been doing this for a while now. I see you, I see you like, contact me for bookings. I love it. So how are you feeling personally about your writing, your work, being an editor-in-chief of, Latino Media Co.? What keeps you excited about your line of work? Like, it's still a challenge. It's still a slog. I mean, this isn't easy, right?
Right. Well, and actually, that is a good tie-in because it relates back to your other question about like, what is the organizing? What are the examples of that? And I am excited about Latino Media Co. and also the work that we've been doing from a critical standpoint, because I see, and I talk about this in my TED Talk, if you all want to check it out, that if we're going to get to a place where this world is made for everybody, everybody's stories have to be told, and everybody has to have a chance to evaluate them. We need all of those things to work so that everyone's full humanity gets recognized, so that we all have voices and can be in conversation with each other and like engage in real meaningful ways. And whether we like it or not, TV and movies, those are like the big storytelling vehicles we have as a society. So
yeah,
I'm working on the evaluation piece, and I feel really positive. I feel really optimistic about it. We've been growing at Latina Media Co. We've had now more than 75 contributors, and I really see us as the explicit invitation to Latinas and queer Latinxes that we can be critics, we can be entertainment journalists. And that's a field where we don't have a lot of representation. If you want to check the numbers, it's something like white guys write 2/3 of movie reviews, despite making up about 30% of the population. And women, racialized women, so that's Latinas, Black women, Indigenous women, and Asian women combined, write 4% of movie reviews.
4% combined. That's like all WOC, women of color.
Yes.
Wow.
They don't even break it out because it's so small.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, yeah, it's all the people that aren't white.
Whatever.
Blah, blah, blah. Wow, Cristina, that's wow.
Yeah, and so, but we're changing that, right? We are the explicit invitation. We've had people get their very first bylines with us. We've had people with decades of newsroom experience, and they like read each other's work and talk about it and share it, and that's
amazing.
Give you work on book deals together. We have one writer who's in publishing. It's so cool to see this community coalesce and get really excited, and to be at the helm of it is just like a total inspiration. I love it.
Well, you are an inspiration to me because I've always said this to you, and I've been very public about your writing. As an editor, whenever you would send me copy, I would have a smile on my face because it was such a joy to edit and publish you. And I hope it's not the last time. I know, you've been on with, you've been on with me a couple of times at Latino Rebels Radio and other things, but I'm just so glad that we checked in. And so give me a final grade for representation in Hollywood, Latinos and Latinas, before we wrap up. Final grade, just a letter grade, because you're an evaluator now.
Yeah, I'm going to give us a B+.
B+, that's pretty good.
Yeah, still room to grow.
I mean, I was in D-. I was in D- land about 12 years ago, so all right.
Yeah, progress.
Cristina Escobar, co-founder and EIC of Latina Media Co. Thank you so much for being on the Latino Newsletter podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to chat.
Boom. Yearly check-in on representation and Hollywood and Latinos and Latinas. And I will say, when I've spoken to Cristina before, I never heard a B+ come out of, her grading evaluation sheet. So kudos for the B+. But as you can see, there's still some questions and there's still some work to do. So we will be following the work of Cristina Escobar and Latina Media Co. And you should too, because it's really important. They do great work. The Latino Newsletter is produced and edited by me, Julio Ricardo Varela, and my fellow Knicks fan. Yes, I love the Knicks, and so does my producer, Joaquin Cotler, JB11, Captain, Capitan. Go New York, go New York, go. All right. For a Boston guy. I live in Boston. Anyway, the mixing and sound design is by Joaquin Cotler. The music is by Cast of Characters via Soundstripe. So listen, this is the 3rd episode, and we're going to be doing this every week. And this is a fact. We already have guests booked until the middle of September. So we're committing to doing this every week, dropping on a Thursday. So I'm only asking you this. Share this podcast and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on the Twitter at Lat Newsletter. And you can follow us on other social platforms at The Latino Newsletter. Okay? Remember, Twitter, Lat Newsletter. Everywhere else, The Latino Newsletter. It's pretty easy. And if you really want to send me suggestions or say you love the show, you can always add comments in the Spotify feed. But you can email me directly, julio@thelatinonewsletter.org. All right, we'll be back next week with another guest. Peace out, y'all.